And he's starting second on the grid, a car's length behind his teammate Alain Prost, front row of the grid. Then in the second row, Michael Schumacher's Benetton and Senna's McLaren. Row 3 behind the Benetton and the McLaren, Riccardo Patrese Benetton and Martin Brundle, the second highest British driver. But he heads row 4, two more British drivers, Johnny Herbert Lotus, Derek Warwick in the Mugen. Then Mark Blundell, yet another Englishman. Suzuki in the revived footwork car ahead of Andretti 11th, Alesi 12th. Gerhard Berger down in 13th position, very unhappy with his car. Rubens Barrichello in the Jordan. Eric Comas was fourth fastest this morning, but we discovered afterwards that he had virtually empty fuel tanks, which made a considerable difference, to put it mildly. Philippe Alliot there is in 24th position on the grid and starting last again, but my goodness, they are trying. Badeur in his Lola Ferrari. Well, this doesn't look too good, does it? The forecast has been for showers of rain during the race. There are those, of course, who are expecting a Williams walkover, who would say, well, that would be a good thing because it means we would have a lot of excitement from cars coming in to change tyres from slicks to wets. Well, I don't know whether it's going to rain, and I don't know whether they're going to be switching from slicks to wets, but there is Alain Prost, who is reputed not to like driving in the wet, which he strongly denied when I was talking to him yesterday. He said, I don't like driving in the wet when it was wet like it was in Australia a few years ago, when it was such that you virtually needed a pontoon to get around. But he said, when the circuit is damp, as opposed to slopping wet, I'm as happy as anybody else. That's a man who, as I say, Alain Prost, he's driven in 191 Grand Prix already, whereas Damon Hill has only driven in 10. He's led 4 of them, and he's had the most enormous pressure on him ever since since long before he came here, because the mantle of Nigel Mansell has fallen onto the shoulders of Damon Hill, who is very different attitudinally in personality. Nigel loves the adulation of the crowd, and I think Damon, whilst he likes it very much, at this stage in his career feels a little embarrassed by it and finds it getting in the way of his concentration. It didn't stop him from, as those of you who watched the qualification yesterday, from having pole position right up to the closing seconds when Alain Prost snatched it away from him. And Damon's aim must be to get into Copse Corner first when the lights turn from red to green. That's the dash along the stretch. That's David Brown on the right, who is Nigel Mansell's ex-race engineer, and he's now working with Alain Prost. And he said they're both a challenge to a race engineer in their different ways. Alain Prost is meticulous, demanding, unbelievably thorough, leaves nothing to chance, tests and retests everything to make sure that everything is absolutely right. He has mastered the very different handling characteristics of the Williams car, but says that he doesn't have the sheer strength that Damon Hill has got, and Silverstone is a very, very physical circuit. You have to take the car by the scruff of the neck and wring it to get the maximum performance out of it. That was something that Nigel Mansell was consummately good at, better than his teammate last year, Riccardo Patrese. And so now here is Michael Schumacher. He, as I said earlier on, is supremely fit. He's on a confidence high because he's already finished second in the San Marino and Canadian Grand Prix this year. He's 4th in the World Championship, just 4 points behind Damon Hill. He's got a very wieldy car, that Benetton Ford, which was designed by Ross Brawn and Rory Byrne and the rest of the technicians at Enstone, handles extremely well. It has the Ford V8 pneumatic valve engine, which the McLarens are using in this race as well, incidentally. And by virtue of the fact that it's a V8 as opposed to a V10 or a V12, it carries a much lighter fuel load. So there is Kenneth Clark, who is of course the Chancellor of the Exchequer and a very keen motor racing enthusiast. I think he's going to see a good day's racing here. Now, Why has Alain Prost got the wheels of his car off the ground? Well, it's up on the jacks just in case there is a sudden shower of rain and they decide that they are going to switch the tyres, or alternatively to let the characteristics of the active suspension develop.
Yes, and also, Murray, if you let the weight of the car sit on the tyres and it is warm, you tend to get a tyre going slightly out of roundness. And to have your belt and braces on, it's better to keep the car up on jacks so that the tyre, of course, still being heated by the tyre warmers that you see there to keep the temperature of this compound that's been specially created by the tyre maker to give the optimum performance. Temperature plays a big part in that. At the same time, if you then overheat the tyres for any reason, the tyre can go out of roundness. So the uniformity of the tyre is what they're protecting in this case.
Something else for you to remember when you put the car away in the garage tonight, but the tyre compounds on your car are very different to those on a Formula One racing car, of course. So the Williams, the Benettons, the Footworks, the Ferraris, the Lolas, the Larousses, and all the rest of them down there, they have got 192 miles, as near as makes very little difference, to complete in this 9th round of the World Championship this year. And up for grabs, 10 World Championship points for the winner, 6 for second place, 4 for third, and so on, down to 1 point for 6th position. All very hardly fought for. It's by no means unusual in a Grand Prix for half the entry to drop out. And to people who say, I would have thought the engineering brains of the world could make a car that would last for 200 miles, I would say, yes, of course they can, but these cars are more like fighter aircraft than cars. They are built to incredibly meticulous and demanding standards to stand the most enormous stresses, and in the heat of battle, which is a Grand Prix, things can and do go wrong. And you're looking down now at the complex of corners which approach the start and finish line, that is to say the left-hander at Priory, which is just to the left of your picture, and then there are the 2 right-handers at Luffield after the left-hander at Brooklands. Silverstone has been considerably modified at enormous expense by the British Racing Drivers Club in recent years. The BRDC own it and have ploughed enormous amounts of money into it to maintain Silverstone at the standard which is demanded by the governing body of motorsport in order to have a Grand Prix. And Silverstone have retained that privilege for future years, that is to hold the British Grand Prix. Damon Hill very much within himself now. The tube leading into the front of his helmet is a drinking tube, so that he can take some refreshment if he needs it during the race. It's not going to be as critical here as it is in a lot of races, of course, because if you're racing in somewhere like Brazil, where the temperatures are enormously high, the loss of body fluids is gigantic, and you certainly need to replace it. A lot of people here have come in the hope that this man is going to win, to do something that his late great father, double world champion Graham Hill, who won at Monaco 5 times, the only man in the history of motor racing to win at Le Mans, Indianapolis and the World Championship. The eyes of Alain Prost, who always looks terribly worried, but he's an extremely likeable, cheerful, easy to talk to, relaxed man. Not very relaxed at the moment. Small wonder, because there's a very short time to go now before they go round on the parade lap, the assembly lap, the observation lap. It's given all sorts of names. So just let's have a last check from the commentary box to our man on the spot to find out what's happening about tyres, and the man is Jonathan Palmer.
Well, things seem to be pretty settled down here, Murray. We've got all of the front runners in their race cars, except Gerhard Berger, who is in the spare Ferrari after his race car had an active suspension problem. Tyre-wise, of course, they're all on the B compound, which is the softer of the compounds. I think we're going to see tyre stops for most people, but interestingly, the two that might not could be the two Williams cars, because they do have a performance advantage, as we know, and I think if they don't fight each other too much, there's quite a good chance that they could look at going through. But of course, the other tyre issue is one of whether or not we're going to have wets. The clouds are thickening up slightly, and I reckon there's probably a 50-50 chance of some rain in the race, the way things are looking at the moment. The British drivers are generally feeling, I think, obviously apprehensive, but reasonably confident with their setups, with the exception of the Ligier duo. I spoke to Martin Brundle, who made the point that, of course, they've had very little testing time here with Ligier. He's not happy with his setup for racing, really, although he's qualified in that excellent 6th place. So I don't think we're going to see a strong showing from the Ligiers.
I think it's going to rain. I hope I'm wrong in some ways. I hope I'm right in others, but irrespective of what I think, it will or it will not happen. It's getting a bit chilly down there compared with what it was like earlier today, and certainly compared with what it was like yesterday. As you look at, in the centre of your screen, pole position, Alain Prost to the left, Damon Hill, both in Williams Renaults. Behind Prost is Michael Schumacher. Behind Hill is Ayrton Senna. We're with Michael Schumacher now, looking forwards from his car at Alain Prost. So they go into Cops Corner, the first right-hander, and we're looking down at the helicopter, and you can see what Silverstone is like.
Well, and what a view it is as the cars stream away through Cops Corner here. This is where Schumacher had his little problem yesterday and head off towards Beckett's. A complex now of a left that's just coming into screen, followed by a right-hander. It's the next left-hander that's vitally important, the corner that the leading car is going through right now, and then followed by that right before heading up through a gentle left-hander, which is not really a corner, towards Hangar Straight. It's here, of course, the driver just gets a little bit of time to do things, not much, but to relax just a tiny bit before he brakes quite late nowadays to get into this Stowe corner that they're about to tackle. It's a double apex. They go in just where you see that car doing. They let it drift out a little bit and then take another apex there before going through the left-hander that Patrese had a heavy accident in last year. Through the slowest corner of the racetrack, the second gear left-hander, very slow indeed. And from that point, this is Club Corner, and they accelerate hard with their traction control all the way up to about 185 miles an hour before getting to Abbey Curve. Used to be one of the great corners of the racetrack. Whether men could go through there with a flat-out situation was a big gamble. Nowadays, for them, it's hardly a corner. But now this is bridge. Fifth gear, 165 miles an hour before braking hard for Priory. There's a lot of people have been making mistakes in Priory this weekend in the lesser formulas. Then they go into Brooklands. Got to be careful not to get too excited here and use too much road before getting into Luffield 1, which they're approaching now, and you can see the change of surface there. Drivers got to be conscious of that before getting to Luffield 2, and the grandstands certainly have now filled up. Accelerate hard again, and of course they'll have to come down to a slow speed now. This is Woodcote Corner, and they come back onto the starting grid. That's what they've got to do for 59 laps.
Alain Prost, pole position time, 1 minute 19 seconds and 6 1/1000th, the speed of 147.966 miles an hour, and that is very quick. He won't be as quick as that today. He might not even reach Nigel Mansell's lap record time from last year of 1 minute 22.539 seconds, but Prost will be quick. Well, the preliminaries are over, the talking is stopping, and Alain Prost and Damon Hill, left bottom of your screen, are ready to go, as are the rest of them. Prost, Hill, then Schumacher in third position, in fourth place Ayrton Senna, fifth and sixth Senna and Brundle. You know what that means, don't you? It means they're ready to go. Watch the lights. That's it, a superstar by Damon Hill. Prost has got a bad one. Senna's coming up alongside the Frenchman, and Damon Hill leads into Cops. And
And up into second place from fourth on the grid goes the incredible Ayrton Senna ahead of Alain Prost. Schumacher is fourth, and off. That looks like Andretti off to me. He's done it again. Yet again, he has failed to start properly, and he is out of the race almost as soon as it's begun. Andretti having a terrible season. He's used to starting rolling starts in America, but never mind. Here comes Hill down the hanger straight in the Williams Renault, leading Ayrton Senna. Now, is the Brazilian going to be able to stay ahead of Prost? Because Prost has undoubtedly got more horsepower in the Williams Renault than Ayrton Senna in the Ford, although Senna, don't forget, is using the more powerful pneumatic valve engine from Ford, as the Benettons have been this season. But Hill is taking the opportunity to extend his lead, and Prost has got to get past Senna to get to grips with the Englishman. Schumacher is in fourth place, Brundle is in fifth place, Riccardo Patrese is sixth in the Benetton, and Prost is going to have a go as they come through to complete the first lap, but he's not going to succeed. They're into the left-hander at Priory and Brooklands, then the two right-handers at Luffield to the completion of lap 1 with 58 to go, and Patrese is closing up on Alain Prost with Brundle behind him. There's Schumacher in fourth position. So it is Williams Renault leading. It's McLaren second, Williams Renault is third, then the Benetton fourth. In fifth position there's Brundle, sixth is Patrese, seventh is Johnny Herbert, eighth is Alesi, ninth is Blundell, 10th is Alesi, 11th is Derek Warwick, and the rest of them go pouring through. A great start, Jackie.
Very, very good for Damon Hill, because here he's got a situation which is fine, but we've got a shot of Andretti here having his problem in the very first lap. He comes into Copse and you got it right wrong, absolutely losing it in reverse through into the gravel pit. The race will be over for him. He cannot get out. Now, was touched by someone else or he went off on his own, we weren't able to see. But Damon Hill right now is gaining enormously with regards to the Prost situation by being ahead of Senna. Senna certainly doesn't want to let Prost through, but of course one of the great things about Alain Prost is his intelligence. He has got the presence of mind to wait until it's the right moment to go for it with him, and he's not going to do it there. Senna was defending his position there by using the centre of the road going into bridge. He wasn't giving any opportunity to Prost to move over and get him. It's most likely that he will do it there. It's the more advantageous place.
And Schumacher is closing up on Prost. We got a great battle for second position. We got a great leader. It was 1.4 seconds at the end of the first lap, and Damon Hill goes through. Is he extending his lead over Ayrton Senna? Yes, he is. It's nearly 2 seconds now. So Damon Hill is easing away. There's the reason. Quickest lap, 133.4 miles an hour as Prost goes for Senna, who will probably be taking a certain amount of sardonic satisfaction from the fact that he's holding his great rival back and letting Damon Hill pull away in the lead. The Englishman leads, Brazilian second, Frenchman third, German fourth, Englishman Martin Brundle is in fifth position, Italian Riccardo Patrese is in sixth place. Behind Patrese, Johnny Herbert, Alesi is eighth, Blundell is ninth, Berger is 10th, Warwick is in 11th place, and Rubens Barrichello is in 12th position, and he's gained several places because he started 15th. You're watching Ayrton Senna and Alain Prost. Well, Senna, who had problems getting the setup of his car right in the warm-up, seems to have worked the oracle, and you watch Alain Prost closing. Now, this is where he's going to make his effort. Senna knows and moves across with Prost. And that's Ayrton Senna in front. Now, Ayrton Senna is perfectly entitled to go anywhere on the circuit that he wants to, provided he does not blatantly weave his McLaren Ford. He is in front, so he can take the line. And if, in doing so, he can block Alain Prost, so much to the good as far as he's concerned.
The other thing that Alain Prost will be thinking about is aerodynamics. The air behind his car gets spoiled, so therefore, as far as Senna's concerned, he's got no air problems, but Alain Prost does have air problems. When you're this close, your front wings don't work so much as he looks. He can't do it there. It seems to me that Senna's a little faster through here. He was faster through in the last lap. You can see that Alain Prost is losing a bit there, and he's therefore not getting the chance in this next straight, which is Hanger Straight, to slingshot Ayrton Senna. Although he gains on him, and Prost has to keep his eye on Schumacher. He's not a threat at the present time. He won't do it there. The best chance is into bridge for him, but whether Senna will give him the space is another matter. This, in the meantime, of course, has given Damon Hill. And there is Andretti walking back, very upset. It looks to me as if he may have been touched by another car, the anger that he's showing. Whether it was his own fault or another car hit him is, of course, still the same result. Look at Prost now, going through Abbey. This is the time for it. He's going to try and do it, but of course he's not getting much space. Senna's not giving him it. In the meantime, Damon is, of course, using this to his advantage. He's pulling out this handsome lead, which, of course, then Prost would have to try and catch if he does get past Senna, which I'm sure he will.
Well, Damon Hill is leading now on lap 4 out of 59 by 2.3 seconds and building. And Michael Andretti must feel dreadful. That's the 5th time in 9 races that he has retired, and retired in the very early stages. He just cannot seem to master the technique of getting away from a standing start. Although maybe, as Jackie says, he was touched by somebody. Meantime, this great fight for second position at Silverstone, there it is. And they are Senna, Prost, Schumacher. And 3 seconds behind them, Martin Brundle in the Ligier Renault, and 1.5 seconds behind him is Riccardo Patrese in 6th place. Johnny Herbert is still 7th, Alesi is 8th, Blundell is in 9th position. So the 2 Ligier Renaults are well up. Derek Warwick is still 10th, Barrichello is 11th, Gerhard Berger is 12th. And just let's enjoy this battle for second. Senna on the right, Prost in the blue and white and yellow Williams, behind both of them the yellow and green Benetton of Michael Schumacher, and Prost is going for it, and he's done it! He's done it! He hasn't! My goodness, he hasn't! Wow, that was very, very fraught indeed. Did you see the way the Williams got out of shape there? Senna's not having any of that. No, you won't, he says, and retains his second place, and because of that, Prost lost a bit of momentum, and Michael Schumacher is right with him, and Senna has slightly extended his lead over the Williams Renault, and I have little doubt that Damon Hill will be further ahead of all of them. We're with Schumacher. Let's watch this and see what happens. We're with Michael Schumacher pursuing in the Benetton. The light comes on, incidentally, on the dashboard when the rev limiter starts to operate, and he just flicks the gears and changes them. There he goes again. They are operating the semi-automatic gearbox, or in the case of the McLaren Ford, the virtually automatic gearbox, because all the changes are programmed into the gearbox according to the configuration of the circuit. And look at the lead that Damon Hill has got on lap 6 out of 59. These 3 are holding each other up. Prost goes for it again. And yet again, Senna closes the door, politely but firmly. Senna ahead, we're with Prost. And the fastest lap so far, Damon Hill, 1:26.71, compared with the lap record, 1:22.5. But as I always say, it's early days. They have almost a full fuel load as Prost right up to Senna now as they come to bridge. This is the incredible 160-mile-an-hour corner. We're looking back from Senna at Prost and Schumacher. You can see Ayrton Senna's McLaren suspension bobbing up and down, and you can see underneath the wing. Well, now we're looking forward from Prost to Senna. We have cameras on Senna's car, on Prost's car, and on Schumacher's car. Second, third, and fourth. I'll have it now, says Alain Prost. I think I'm going to take second place. I don't think you are, says Ayrton Senna. Yes, I am. No. This is absolutely sensational stuff. Just look at Schumacher behind them too. This is the best scrap in the leading places that we've had all season, no doubt about it.
I think Alain Prost is going to be a little upset, in fact, because I think he feels now that Ayrton was cramping him there on the way through. He almost had the pass. I think sooner or later, as we see it now, he's just made that pass very strongly. If he holds the tight line in, he's okay. And Schumacher now is obviously in a position to threaten Senna. Schumacher will incidentally be much more aggressive on Senna than Alain Prost was. Schumacher's younger, bright-eyed, bushy-tailed, full of enthusiasm. enthusiasm. Ayrton Senna may have got his tyre temperatures a wee bit up, and there you're with Schumacher getting close to Ayrton Senna. And watch this young man, he's going to give him a real push, and he has done it. He's gone through. No, he hasn't. They were side by side. You can see the correction that Schumacher had to make. He was surprised, looking behind from Ayrton Senna's car. Very good picture of Schumacher. Schumacher not hitting the curve, being very clean, using a different piece of road sometimes than Senna. Again from Schumacher's car, looking forward. I think there's a reasonable chance he'll get Senna, but look at the advantage already taken by Prost. He's just in the distance. There he is there. He's a long way ahead. Really, Ayrton Senna was holding him up, also holding Schumacher up. It's a question as to now whether the young lion can have a go at the three-time world champion master. I think he'll pass him, and I think he will have a go at him more aggressively than Alain Prost did.
And meantime, Alain Prost, who is definitely clearing off, is nearly 8 seconds behind Damon Hill. He's going to have his work cut out to catch the Englishman, let alone get past him. And Schumacher attacks Ayrton Senna. Now, there is no power advantage for Michael Schumacher here, as there was for Alain Prost, because both Senna in the McLaren and Schumacher in the Benetton have identical Ford pneumatic valve V8 engines, and it is showing. The aerodynamics on the Benetton are said by some to be slightly better than those of the McLaren. But now, as you watch this battle for third position, there's the confirmation that Hill is leading Prost by nearly 8 seconds. Brundle is still 5th, and he's 3 seconds behind this battling pair. 6th is Riccardo Patrese still, 7th is Herbert, 8th is Alesi in the Ferrari, 9th is still Derek Warwick, 10th is Mark Blundell, 11th is Rubens Barrichello, 12th is Gerhard Berger, and in 13th position, JJ Leto in the Sauber Ilmor. Another lap completed. Now, have we got time to draw breath? Not very much, because they're up to Cox Corner, 5th gear, at about 160 miles an hour. They hardly lift here, and you can see it's quite a steep corner. Now into 6th gear, approaching Maggots, and the lap times are coming down. 1:26.023 for Damon Hill, who's responded to the challenge, and he's actually still faster than Alain Prost, even though Prost has got past Senna and has a clear track in front of him. So now here we are, down Hanger Straight into Stowe Corner, very different from the old days. It goes right much longer than it did, then sweeps left into the Vale, a little drop, then they climb up to the 2nd gear left-hander as Michael Schumacher has a look. Now into the right-hand section of the corner, up into 3rd gear, 4th gear, 5th gear, 6th gear, building to 180 miles an hour for the sweep left at Abbey Curve.
He's going to have a go at him here, almost certainly going into bridge. He's going to have a go. Can he do it? No, he can't. It's just too fast there. Senna's not giving him enough speed. He doesn't have the momentum to do it, but that's the place he would like to have done it. However, it is, of course, the most dangerous place to choose to do it. So Ayrton Senna, enormously experienced, of course, with pressure, but not always from behind. Schumacher, bright-eyed, bushy-tailed, as I said earlier, but he's lost time, you see, by that attempt to pass. He's dropped back a little bit. What a nice fight this is, though. The young man with the professor in front, he doesn't want to give a place away. Both driving those identical Ford engines now. Since McLaren now have the latest engine, there is no excuse. And I think Ayrton Senna, by the way, is driving this car harder than Schumacher right now. If there was going to be a tyre change coming up sometime, I would expect it to be Senna's.
And Damon Hill is extending his lead. He's now 8.25 seconds ahead of Prost, and this is Schumacher taking 3rd place as forecast by J.Y. Stewart. Schumacher goes through into 3rd position with a supreme passing manoeuvre, and Ayrton Senna, who has gone from 2nd to 3rd, has now gone from 3rd to 4th. Now, can Schumacher do anything about the Williams in front of him? I doubt him. Gerhard Berger, a very early tyre stop, and I'm not at all surprised. The Ferrari drivers have been having a lot of problems with their active suspension, and Aguri Suzuki walks in, so that is the 2nd retirement. He's walking in from Woodcote. Michael Andretti out at the start. There's his footwork Mugen of Aguri Suzuki being pushed in. We're on lap 10. We're up to 1/6 race distance already. Doesn't time fly when you're enjoying yourself? And Damon Hill is leading Prost by a decreasing margin. There is the Englishman. Well, he's got the best chance he ever had to win a Grand Prix. Derek Warwick has passed Alesi, and here's a replay of Schumacher going through and taking cleanly with no problem at all and no real resistance from Ayrton Senna, taking that third place. We're on lap 11 out of 59, and there is Gerhard Berger driving in, passed by Prost, and there is Schumacher in third position, fourth Senna. Senna is being caught by Martin Brundle now, and Patrese is being caught by Johnny Herbert. Marvellous. Johnny Herbert in seventh position is catching. There is the young Englishman, and Gerhard Berger looks as though he's going to retire. He's going very slowly indeed. Well, I wonder if Gerhard is ruining the day he said he would drive for Ferrari. He's left the most successful Grand Prix team in recent years, McLaren, to go to Ferrari, and money wasn't the only reason. He was wanting to get out from under the shadow of Ayrton Senna and strike out on his own again, and it looks as though he'd made the wrong move. But now you can see that Ayrton Senna is dropping well back. Now let's stay with Damon Hill. This is his opportunity, and already the Union Jacks are waving. Now, whilst we are clear, according to Prost and Hill, that there are no team orders, my understanding is that the drivers are allowed to fight each other until the last 10 laps, and then, in order to avoid problems like taking each other off and having neither of them finish, as you look back at Damon Hill, he is leading, and if he's still there on lap 49, if his car's reliable, we can hope from the English point of view that he is going to win his first Grand Prix, the British Grand Prix, which his father, Graham, sadly never did. And on lap 12 out of 59, Hill leads Prost, and he's going quicker than Prost by 8 seconds. Schumacher third, he's now 2.7 seconds ahead of Ayrton Senna. Fifth is Martin Brundle, as Gerhard Berger is dragged back into the pits, and he is the third retirement in 12 laps. And we're with Hill, and Damon Hill is starting to lap people now, and I'm expecting it to be Andrea De Cesaris. It is Andrea De Cesaris, who is in 21st position out of the 25s who started. So in the new Tyrrell 021, which has got a lot of development in it, they say, and it looks as though it's going to need a lot of developing, as Damon Hill has lapped it in just 13 laps, and he looks as though he's got a marvellous winning rhythm.
Well, I think Alain Prost won't be giving this away, Murray. I think that Damon Hill's had a wonderful advantage, and it's almost been a little bit of a present for him that the Ayrton Senna saga went on with Alain Prost, but Damon has wisely taken advantage of it to the tune of more than 8 seconds. I do think that Alain Prost will start to be able to stand on it a little bit. There he is. He's got nothing to lose and everything to gain. He's one of the smoothest drivers. Let's just watch him. He hardly ever touches a curve. He hardly ever uses more than the black car rather than getting onto the white curves on the exits of corners. This type of driving of precision, Prost is the master at. He truly is one of the greatest drivers that I've known on the track. Does it with such precision, with such finesse, lets a car roll into the corner rather than breaking it into a corner, giving the suspension every chance to do the job it was designed and intended to do. The only place, it'll be interesting to see if he uses the curve coming out of Woodcote. Yes, he does. That's the only rumble strip, and it's not really a rough one that all of the drivers use. But very little will you see of that man Prost using curves.
Well, the next man for Damon Hill to lap is Akio Kitayama, but we're looking now at Michael Schumacher. Now, this is Schumacher's telemetry. On the left, you see the throttle pedal at 100%. He's got it flat on the metal, 12,000 RPM, over 150 miles an hour. Watch the way he backs off and how rapidly the revs rise and fall from 9,000 to 15,000. And he's doing, as you can see, nearly over 170 miles an hour. I can't keep up with him. 185 miles an hour, and that 190, and Michael Schumacher has got the pedal either absolutely flat or right off, depending on where he is on the circuit. You see, he's back right off now. He's in first gear. Wonderful graphics these are, because they are linked by radio directly to Michael Schumacher's car. You are following every move that the German makes. He's in third position. He's lapping about 9/10 of a second slower than Damon Hill at the present moment. But no, I tell a lie, he's lapping much closer than that. It's only about 2/10 off on this last lap. So Schumacher is holding the two Williams in front of him, but there is a gap on lap 15 of 8 seconds between Prost in second place and Hill leading. And as Michael Schumacher goes through and completes the lap, he is 8.5 seconds behind Alain Prost. And look up, look at those rain clouds. They seem to be getting lower and lower to me, and it won't surprise me one little bit if soon we are seeing drops appear on the lens of the camera that we're looking through from the race cars, indicating that there is rain. And it's not until the circuit starts to glisten that you need to start thinking about changing to rain tyres.
The drivers are always very conscious, of course, of the rain risk. The marshals also, and we have such a wonderful band of marshals here in Britain. If there's a bit of rain at one end of the circuit, and it may sometimes happen, particularly here at Silverstone, where it's not wet at another end of the circuits, the marshals will point upwards with their hands and fingers and sometimes show a yellow and orange striped flag, which means the surface is slippery. The drivers themselves, however, are very conscious at looking ahead. It's part of the tremendous consumption that the driver has to have optically going to his brain to be able to understand what's going to happen up front in order to handle it correctly. De Cesare is there being lapped, of course. We saw him being lapped by Damon Hill as he was lapped by Alain Prost. Now he is being lapped by Schumacher as they go through past the pits. Schumacher there coming with the heat coming off the tarmac into Copse Corner. He uses quite a lot of curve, does our young Michael. As he came out of there the last time, I noticed, was using a lot of curve as he heads now towards this difficult corner. And here you saw the picture now is Martin Brundle coming through. Martin Brundle, a very experienced driver, very mature driver, a canny man from Norfolk, King's Lynn it is. Enjoys his golf and his shooting. Martin Brundle, a man that's sometimes almost too nice, Murray, to be a racing driver.
Well, he's certainly nice enough to be challenging Ayrton Senna now, because Martin Brundle is rapidly gaining on the Brazilian, and he's only 2 seconds behind him on time, and you can see the distance for yourselves as they exit the Vale and go into Club Corner. And Martin Brundle, who has already had a third place, a couple of fifths and a sixth this year, and is fifth in the World Championship, is on a charge. And behind him is Riccardo Patrese, the yellow and green car. And on lap 16 out of 59, Damon Hill continues to lead his teammate Alain Prost. Damon is on his 17th lap. Prost is 8.5 seconds behind him. Damon Hill is maintaining the gap beautifully. He's probably talking to his pit all the time. He's just gone round in 1 minute 25.2, and that is just a whisker off the fastest lap that Prost has done, as we look at Thierry Boutsen, and behind him Pierluigi Martini, who is returning to Grand Prix racing, driving for Minardi in the white car, number 24, and he is about to be lapped by Damon Hill, and Martini is in 18th position. So on lap 16, Hill is about to lap the 18th and 17th men, Pierluigi Martini and Thierry Boutsen in the Jordan Hart, which is made within sight of the gates of Silverstone, and straight past goes Damon Hill and Boutsen. He's just taken the two of them. And of course, every car that he can put between himself and Alain Prost is going to help his progress towards his first Grand Prix victory. And what a victory it would be if it happened here at Silverstone at the British Grand Prix. Another lap completed. we've seen what happened to Michael Andretti from an outside point of view, but Jonathan Palmer, I think, can tell us more about it. Jonathan?
Yes, Murray, I had a quick word with Michael, who, as ever, came straight back to his pit and faced the press. I don't know how he has the courage to do it. And he said it was really a racing accident. He said nobody touched him. He got wide, his tyres were cold, the back came round, and he got on the marbles, he lost grip, and then ultimately went off. A little bit more action. It seems that Gerhard Berger had an engine problem. The engine didn't sound too clever. Good to see Martin Brundle actually going better than even I think he thought, because he made another change to the setup in the quest for every improvement prior to the race, after the warm-up. So that seems to be working, but some good news is that the clouds do seem to have been keeping away, and I don't think we're going to see any rain for the foreseeable future anyway.
That's good news. Good news for Damon Hill, especially. He's maintaining the gap, despite the fact that Alain Prost has just made the fastest lap of the race, 1 minute 25.180. And that is about 2.5 seconds off the lap record. You're watching the Frenchman now, the most successful driver in the history of Grand Prix racing, with 49 wins behind him, striving for a 50th here at Silverstone.
I held the record of 27 Grand Prix victories, Murray, until Alain Prost beat me in Portugal, and I in fact was at that very race commentating for American television, and it was with some pride that I saw that. This is, by the way, another battle that's taking place right now. Derek Warwick is under some pressure from Blundell right now. Warwick, in fact, has been much higher and has been passed systematically by Johnny Herbert and then by Martin Brundle, and is now under threat by Mark Blundell. But just going back to Prost again, this could be his 50th Grand Prix win this weekend if he does win it, but I'm sure Damon Hill is going to try and avoid that.
Yeah, what a battle this is, because Derek Warwick is going better here in Silverstone than he's gone in most Grand Prix. He nearly got 6th place in South Africa this year, until on his return to Grand Prix racing he spun out in the wet on the closing stages. But Warwick has got the McLaren tag active suspension on the footwork. They've licensed it from McLaren and they're getting used to it, and as I said earlier on, Derek Warwick did extremely well in the warm-up this morning, because in the footwork he was 5th fastest. He's maintaining that momentum. His teammate Aguri Suzuki, as you know, is out of the race, and Mark Blundell is something to talk about too, because, as I said, he went off on Friday at 150 miles an hour, and this is the stuff that Grand Prix drivers are made out of. They'll get back in a car, notwithstanding the fact that they've had an enormous crash. And Mark Blundell had problems in the warm-up yesterday, but he's not letting that bother him at all. He is now in 9th position behind Derek Warwick, and you can see the battle for yourself, with, I think, Blundell using the superior power of his V10 Renault engine, closing up on the footwork of the enormously experienced Derek Warwick. So, Blundell, and this is interesting, in the pit lane, the McLaren crew are ready to change the tyres. You can see they've got the tyre warmers on still, so since they've got to take those off, we're now on lap 19, which is, as near as makes no difference, 1/3 distance out of 59 laps. Is the man who comes in going to be Ayrton Senna? Of course it is, because Michael Andretti is out of the race, and Senna is now catching Luca Badoer, the Italian, who is in 19th position and is about to be lapped by the flying Brazilian in the McLaren Ford. And the Lola is going better here at Silverstone than it has at a lot of circuits this year. And we're with Senna. That was him surging past Badoer's Lola. The team suffers from the disadvantage of not being able to test at British circuits. It's officially an Italian team, the Scuderia Italia, and because of that they are only allowed to test at Italian circuits between Grand Prix. So Ayrton Senna, there he is. He has now signed for the McLaren team for the rest of the year. That's good news, and I wonder how long it's going to be before he comes in. Now, Ayrton Senna will be looking for his signalling board, and that's it. Place 4, lap 39, you're 11.8 seconds behind, is the information he got. Visual confirmation of the information he will have received on his pits to car radio. And Senna is quite a considerable talker, they tell me, on the pits to car radio. always saying, how far behind am I? What is my lap time compared with the man in front? Is he showing any signs of coming in? And this is a brilliant workman at work. 3 times world champion Ayrton Senna in his 151st Grand Prix, and he is 13 seconds now behind Michael Schumacher. And I am surprised that Senna is as much as 13 seconds behind Schumacher, considering they're in cars with virtually identical engines. I wonder if he has got some sort of a problem.
I don't think that the McLaren, in fact, is working all that well, and I think this is what you're seeing now with Ayrton Senna. I think he is a better driver, and there you see the man himself driving. Incidentally, the gloves that you see, he wears his gloves inside out. He's superstitious. Isn't it wonderful? Even with the skill and the knowledge that he has about motor racing, he has a superstition, and he wears those gloves inside out. He's always had it that way, and he doesn't want to change anything. You can see the kickback through the steering there, over the bumps mainly. You don't want to be using the steering wheel a great deal. You want to be feeding it in. It's almost fingers and thumbs rather than sweaty palms when you drive a racing car. But you do have to hold on a little bit. There's a lot of steering effort in there. Look, he took his hand right off there to have, look, relaxing. That's a good time to do it. I would have expected him to do it just after this complex, however, in Hangar Straight, rather than approaching Beckett's, which is fairly difficult. Now let's see if he does it again. There he goes. That's him just relaxing. You can sometimes, he did it with the other hand as well. You can sometimes get cramp when you're doing that. Look how close he got to the corner there. That's mind management. That's presence of mind to be able to do that in such a calculated way. Be relaxed mentally. So that, I think, is the essence of Ayrton Senna's knowledge and experience. Of course, he's led by a tremendous team as we're getting, and then there's the team leader himself with Mika Hakkinen standing next to him. Is, of course, Ron Dennis, president of McLaren International. And, of course, and there's Alesi into the pits. Alesi's come back in. That's the rather, there he's off now.
Yeah, his teammate, of course, Gerhard Berger, is out of the race already, and it looks as though Alesi is. No, out he goes, and Harvey Postlethwaite, who is one of the top men at Ferrari, said just before the race that neither driver was at all happy with their car. Well, Jean Todt has joined Ferrari from being team chief with the Victoria Sports Car Peugeot organisation, and everybody who follows Ferrari will be hoping that he's able to do something for the team. Now, here's a man with a problem. Damon Hill has got a problem, and the problem is called Alain Prost, because Prost has just gone round. There's the confirmation, 1 minute 26.4.621, and you look back and there is Alain Prost lapping Sandro Zanardi's Lotus, or trying to, and Prost has now got his rhythm going. He's making a charge. He's closing up on Damon Hill. The gap has come down from over 8 seconds to 5.7 seconds. And the Frenchman is closing. Hill leads, lap 23. Prost is second, and you are with him now. Those are the hands of the 3 times world champion coming into Woodcote and exiting it, building up to 180 miles an hour as he approaches Copse Corner. He will flick the lever underneath the steering wheel to change down into 5th gear. Take Prost, take Copse. Now he goes building speed into Maggotts, 5th gear, the left-hander, now into that complex where they get 4.5G one way and then immediately 4.5G the other way. It is incomprehensible to me that they can keep driving at that speed and with those pressures. But now he's down the Hangar Straight and he can see Damon Hill's Williams-Renault in front of him. But the gap has gone up a bit. Damon Hill has gone quicker. He's responded to the challenge. He has lapped 7/10 of a second. This is Damon Hill leading, and he is now ahead of the Sauber of JJ Leto. And Leto, the Finnish driver, is in 11th position. So Hill has lapped everybody up to 11th position as Prost closes now on Leto. And the Saubers have had a lot of trouble here at Silverstone getting grip on the circuit. Whatever they did to the setup, it made little difference to the grip that they were getting. And I need hardly tell you that when you're travelling at the speeds and with the G pressures on the cars that they do, grip is rather important. So Leto out of the right-hander at Woodcote coming through to complete the lap. There he goes. That is Prost behind him. They're into lap 25 now, and Prost has done it again, another fastest lap. 1 minute 24.497, 2 seconds off Mansell's lap record, and the gap is down to 5.3 seconds. And there's a Lotus coming into the pits, I can tell you that. It is Sandro Zanardi who locks up. Now let's watch this wheel change. 7 seconds would be good.
Well, 9.2, not brilliant.
Sandro Zanardi, who was very, very stiff when this race began because he went head-on into the wall, as those of you who saw the Lotus feature before we started talking to you will know, wrote off a car and didn't do himself a lot of good. And now there's a Ligier coming in. Is it Martin Brundle? Yes, it is. Martin Brundle comes in 6th position. He's bound to lose a place because Johnny Herbert was only 1.7 seconds behind him. That's a good pit stop. Martin Brundle is through, but Johnny Herbert has moved up into 6th position and is in the points. And I have little doubt that Herbert will have to make a pit stop to change tyres and meet now. There's Derek Warwick. So Derek Warwick was in 8th position, and Martin Brundle, therefore, there he is down to 7th behind Johnny Herbert, who has moved up to 6th, and just ahead of Derek Warwick, who is 8th, and his teammate Mark Blundell, who is 9th, and they are all catching the Lola Ferrari of Italian Luca Badoer, race leader. So this must be Senna coming in. This must be Senna coming in. And I remind you that 3 times world champion Ayrton Senna is in 4th position, a long way now behind Michael Schumacher as you watch Alain Prost, 6.2 seconds. And Senna is coming into the pits as I talk to you behind Boutsen. He won't be at all happy about this because Boutsen is cruising in and Senna will want to come absolutely flying in. We're with Senna now, up to his pit team. Under goes the jack, the hydraulic jack lifts the front of him. One mechanic cleans his visor. There are mechanics on every tyre. What a stop! 5.1 seconds for Ayrton Senna. Wow, that is terrific. And that's Leto, JJ Leto, out of the race at Stowe Corner. I didn't see what happened, but no, it's Wendlinger. It's Wendlinger. I recognise the Sauber overalls. It's Karl Wendlinger out of the British Grand Prix. The Austrian, who is a protege of Gerhard Berger. That's the 7th time he's retired this year. And meantime, Ayrton Senna is back, and Mark Blundell has come into the pits and out again for tyres. Now let's have a look and see what happened to Karl Wendlinger. That's what happened to Karl Wendlinger, straight into the tyres, which proves the point of putting these literal shock absorbers in front of the breeze block wall and behind the gravel trap as Schumacher comes into the pits in 3rd position. Fastest time we've had so far, 5.1 seconds to Ayrton Senna. And is Schumacher going to lose time here? Well, he's lost 4/10 of a second as he lights up the rears and goes for it down the pit lane. This British Grand Prix at Silverstone is turning out to be really something. The leaders now are on lap 27 out of 49. You look at Ayrton Senna coming through and completing his first lap after his tyre change. Damon Hill is leading Alain Prost. They're matching each other lap for lap. The times are coming down. 1 minute 24.4, 1 minute 24.3. The times of Damon Hill and Alain Prost. And there is Ayrton Senna. But interestingly enough, Jonathan Palmer said earlier on that he thought that the Williams team might not be making a tyre stop because they went so easy on the tyres. Well, there's no indication, we've just had a message from him, there's no indication from the pit lane that tyres are being readied for 2nd place man, Alain Prost. This is him, number 2, or the leader. They are now being readied. Somebody is coming in. There's the gap between Damon Hill and Prost. And for sure, if Damon Hill comes in, he's going to lose the lead to Alain Prost on the 28th lap out of 59. Well, here is the Williams pit. You can watch and take part in mentally Damon Hill's pit stop, if indeed it is Hill that comes in rather than Alain Prost. And remember, I don't mean this unkindly, but in the past the Williams team have not always been as good at tyre stops as the McLaren team have, for instance. Now here's Hill. Is Hill coming in at the end of lap 28 with 31 still to go. Watching to see if there's any sign of Damon Hill peeling. Well, he's going through. Damon Hill is going through. Now, what about Prost? Well, he must be past the pit lane entry point. I'm looking for him coming out of Woodcote. Damon Hill goes through into his 29th lap. Jonathan Palmer, what's going to happen?
Well, I'm pretty sure it's going to be Prost, Murray, because Hill has got a no entry sign on his pit board, which I'm sure is to ensure that we don't get a repeat of Canada. I think Hill will be told to stay out whilst Prost comes in. Let's see.
Right, we'll do just that. Damon Hill leading Alain Prost on lap 29 out of 59 by 6.8 seconds. In third position, Schumacher. Fourth is Patrese, who has moved ahead of Herbert. Fifth. Down to sixth has gone Senna after his tyre stop. Brundle has stopped for tyres, is seventh. Blundell has stopped for tyres, is eighth. Ninth is Warwick, 10th is Alio, 11th is Leto, 12th is Christian Fittipaldi, 13th is Barrichello, and in 14th place, Jean Alesi's Ferrari. So now, what, they're all ready. You can come in any time and change those tyres. They are saying, but no one is doing it. Alain Prost isn't doing it, but Patrese is. He comes in fourth position. And Johnny Herbert sweeps into the pit lane ahead of Riccardo Patrese as we look down on the Benetton, and he lights up the rears. Bags of horsepower. They've got about 750 horsepower under their right foot, these drivers. Thierry Boutsen is being caught by the Williams.
And Alain Prost is in fact coming into the pits. He's in the pit lane right now. Now let's listen to Alain Prost coming in. He's dropping down the gears very automatically. When he brings it in, he'll knock it into neutral. And let's try and listen to that engine. I can't hear the engine right now, but it idles at 3,000 revs. Alain gets a little more nervous than Damon Hill in this respect. When he puts the foot on it, he's got to go right to the floor right now. Easy acceleration out of there. 8 seconds, which is rather a slow pit stop in comparison to the McLaren, but it was very important for him to keep the revs up. He was pulsating the revs earlier this season, and if you recall, he stalled the car in the pit lane in Monaco, and he did not floor it when he left. And the idea is to keep them at least 3,000, which is the idle speed, and then put the pedal to the metal all the way when you leave the pit stops to give the engine a good clearance out. But there he's got new rubber on right now, wiping his own visor there on the way down.
Now Damon Hill should come in on this lap because Prost is out on new rubber. That will give him an advantage, and Damon Hill will want to minimise that advantage by coming in immediately after Alain Prost. Prost's pit stop is out of the way. I remind you that it took 8.02 seconds, and Damon Hill is coming into the pits. We are into the pit lane now with race leader Damon Hill on lap 30 out of 59, and the target time for the Williams team to beat is that of Alain Prost tyre stop, 8.02 seconds. Stop with Damon Hill now. Start the clock. The board from the lollipop man in front of him is telling him to keep his brakes on, and that's it, 7.6, and that means to say that Damon Hill has actually gained 4/10ths of a second, and there is Prost. As Damon Hill exits the pit lane, Alain Prost comes down to Copse Corner, and he's going to be just a few seconds behind Damon Hill, but where Alain Prost took the lead on the pit stop in France, Damon Hill has retained it here at Silverstone. And that's great news for the Englishman. There is the Frenchman, Alain Prost. Schumacher is 19 seconds behind him. We're looking back at the London Rowing Club colours of Damon Hill, and that is Alain Prost in second place. That is the gap between them. And the battle is joined. 29 laps to go. Schumacher is still in third position. In fourth position, it's Senna. Fifth is Brundle. Sixth is Patrese. Seventh is Herbert. Eighth is Blundell. Ninth is Warwick. So Hill, Brundle, Herbert and Blundell and Warwick are all in the top 9 places on lap 31 out of 59. 5 English drivers in the top 9 in the British Grand Prix, and I can't remember going back a long way when we had 5 British drivers doing as well as that. Damon Hill, race 1. Listen to your radio, there are 28 laps to go. I don't know whether that means listen to your radio or switch your radio on or switch your radio off, but he will. That's the important thing. Derek Warwick, he's left his radio on, and Derek Warwick is about to be lapped, and Derek Warwick is in 9th place, and he's about to be lapped by the 2nd place man here at Silverstone, Alain Prost. I look at the sky and I can tell you that the clouds we were worried about have lifted, and it looks as though we will not be having rain, as Alain Prost with 1:23.889 is now 1.3 seconds off Nigel Mansell's lap record as he surges past Derek Warwick on sheer power. Derek has a V10 Japanese Mugen engine, and look at Damon Hill on the right, Alain Prost on the left. It's getting closer all the time, and this is where Alain Prost is reaching right down into his reserves of experience of his 191 Grand Prix, and saying, I'm going to claw you in, Damon Hill, and I'm going to get past you and take the lead in the British Grand Prix. Well, we'll see. That's the left-hander of Priory, the left-hander of Brooklands. And that is the position on lap 32 out of 59. Just 3.3 seconds now, 3.4 seconds between Hill and Prost. Schumacher holding a watching brief, hoping that if he does what Ayrton Senna always does in this situation, and Senna is 4th, keep up the maximum pressure he can on the cars in front. One of them may strike a problem which would enable him to gain a place. That's Hill. You'll probably see Prost's car as he turns in. Well, he's taking either Katayama or De Cesaris. That was the Tyrrell 021, and it was Andrea De Cesaris. Both the Tyrrells are still running, Katayama and De Cesaris. They're both well down, but they're still running as Damon Hill goes into the Vale. Well, he's lapping people, but Prost is lapping them just as quickly. Senna is the man who is famous for his overbearing, forbidding passing tactics. Now, there is Hill. Behind him is Katayama in the Tyrrell. That is Prost in 2nd place. The gap between them is about 3 seconds between Hill and Prost. That's Katayama from Prost's car. And Alain just moves over. Katayama gives him space. The Japanese driver is in his 2nd season of Grand Prix racing. This is his 23rd race, and that is Ayrton Senna in 4th place. He's 17 seconds now behind Michael Schumacher. The race order is Hill, Prost, Schumacher, Senna, 1st, 2nd, 3rd, 4th. Martin Brundle still in the points at 5th, ahead of Riccardo Patrese in 6th position in the Benetton Ford. 7th is Johnny Herbert, Blundell is 8th, Warwick is 9th, Leto is 10th, Alio is 11th, Fittipaldi is in 12th position, and there is Ayrton Senna on target at the present moment for 4th position. 3 points. Ayrton Senna in the McLaren Ford. And here's a problem. Bader being passed by Andrea De Cesaris. Oh, and once again, Andrea De Cesaris, I don't know whether it was his fault in quotes or not, but he bangs wheels, and through goes the Sauber Ilmor, and past De Cesaris, who lost momentum there, goes Bader again. You know it's Bader because, as I said earlier on, his teammate Michele Alboreto again failed to qualify for the British Grand Prix for the 4th one in succession. And the leader now, Damon Hill, is increasing his lead. He's driving an absolutely superb race because he's now extended his lead over Alain Prost on lap 34 to 4.2 seconds.
I take my hat off to Damon, because this is indeed pressure to have Alain Prost behind you and to have narrowed that gap, because although Damon Hill's pit stop was slightly faster, the entrance and exit from pit lane must have been slightly slower to bring him down to what it was when they rejoined the race properly. Prost again having done fastest lap, as you could see. He really is a man of tremendous determination. But to keep this pressure on Damon Hill is a great virtue for Hill to recognise after this race is over, and I sincerely hope he's able to do this. A race that his father never did win. It would be wonderful for Damon to get his first, and I'm sure of many Grand Prix victories here in front of his own hometown crowd. There you go, third place Schumacher as Bador comes off. Obviously a mechanical trouble of some kind. He parks the car neatly at the side of the track as we go back to Schumacher. This, of course, is a young man who came blazing onto the scene through the Jordan team and then went over to this Benetton team, had been a Mercedes sports car driver of some note. Had not had a particularly famous turn of 3000, Formula 3000, came through, I think, with the additional power. He's 28.2 seconds behind Damon Hill, however, that's quite a long way. But at the same time, he obviously ground his way into the powerful chassis and engines through Mercedes. Of course, running active suspension, as the cars are doing nowadays, and in Canada he was pressing a button as he went round, as we see the shot going back towards him, to lower the car and to get the speed going along the straight.
Yes, indeed, they have a ride height control, as do the leading teams with active suspension, and now Alain Prost is really charging. He's just gone round 1.3 seconds faster than Damon Hill and closed the gap to just over 2 seconds. There's Hill, he's being held up. No, he's not. Mark Blundell moves out of his way. Is he going to do the same thing for Alain Prost? Because the Frenchman now is right behind the Ligier Renault, and you're seeing now the drivers who are in first and 8th and second positions, with Mark Blundell being sandwiched between the two Williams cars. He politely moves over. Mark Blundell in 8th position behind Johnny Herbert, Riccardo Patrese, who is in 6th place, and Martin Brundle, who is 5th. Senna is 4th. Schumacher is 3rd, and you watch the battle for the lead between Damon Hill and his teammate Alain Prost, as Hill bears down on Thierry Boutsen's Jordan Hart. Now, Thierry Boutsen is certainly off the boil these days, and he hasn't shone in the Jordan Hart. And Alain Prost has taken the opportunity now. Now, Damon Hill has got to get past Thierry Boutsen quickly, because if he doesn't, if he misjudges it, Prost will be able to take both of them on lap 37 and take the lead. Now, this is crucial for Damon Hill. He's out of Boutsen's slipstream, so is Prost, and behind them is Mark Blundell, who has been lapped. They go into Stowe at over 100 miles an hour. And for some reason or another, the safety car is leaving the pit lane. You can't see it, and neither, of course, can Hill and Prost. It may be that there's a problem with Luca Badoer's car. I'm very surprised if they're going to slow up the race behind the pace car. There it is, and it's being passed by JJ Leto's Sauber. It's a recovery vehicle for Badoer's Dallara. Meantime, the race continues on lap 37. This is what Prost has been waiting for. They've both changed tyres. They're both on a set of new, comparatively new Goodyears, and they are absolutely together as they were in France. But they are both going to be very careful indeed, whilst battling for the lead, to remember that they are both driving Williams Renaults. And the one thing that the team wants is 16 World Championship points for the Constructors' title. They don't want them to take each other off. So is Damon Hill going to fight to stay in the front? Of course he is. This is the British Grand Prix. And meantime, Mark Blundell is catching both of them. Mark Blundell in 8th place, who has been lapped. Now that's significant. They're slowing right down. They've seen the safety car. They're all closing up now in formation. Now, what will happen
is that the safety car observer, there is the safety car as they come through the veil. SC means safety car. And they're going to slow right down. The race continues. The time clocks continue. It just means to say that they have to hold station. This is, if you like, the European version of the yellow lights which go on in IndyCar racing in America. And of course it closes everybody right up, and in effect means that you have a second race, because when that safety car pulls off, look at me, Mum, I'm in a racing car, says the marshal, and the car is pulled off. Well, it's not going to delay the race very much. And when that pace car goes round without the lights on top flashing, you can see the flashing lights there. When those lights are turned off, Damon Hill, Alain Prost and the others who are following will know that it is going to pull into the safety lane on the next time round, and that the race will be on again. Well, Hill behind the safety car, Prost behind the safety car. Blundell, who has been lapped, is behind both of them, as is Thierry Boutsen. The lights are off the safety car. Damon Hill knows that, Alain Prost knows that. They may both have told the pits as a matter of interest on their radio. This is the view. Now we're looking, we've actually got a camera on the safety car as well, and it is looking at Alain Prost. Now, build yourselves up at home for something that is going to be really terrific, because when that white Ford safety car pulls off into the pit lane, the race will be on again, and Prost will be looking to jump Damon Hill. He's weaving to keep his tyres warm, as is Mark Blundell, Thierry Boutsen. Then the battle behind is Derek Warwick, Riccardo Patrese, and Derek Warwick is in 9th position, ahead of, no, it's Michael Schumacher, my apologies, not Patrese. There is Katayama and Leto and Boutsen, Lacey, Johnny Herbert, Ayrton Senna, and the race order as the race is about to start full blast is Hill leading, Prost second, Schumacher third, Senna fourth, Brundle fifth, Patrese sixth, Herbert seventh, and Mark Blundell in 8th position. Right, now then, fasten your safety belts. Into the pit lane comes Andrea De Cesaris, the man who's won more Grand Prix than anybody else in the history of Grand Prix racing without actually winning one of them. Right. Now they're into the approach to Priory, the left-hander. Then there's Brooklands, then there's Luffield 1, then there's Luffield 2, then there's Woodcote, and it's there that the safety car will pull off. So, at home, are you ready? Prost, you see, moving right up behind Damon Hill. Watch the safety car. Those yellow lines indicate where he's going to pull in. He pulls in, and the races go. And across the line go the two Williams Renaults as one, followed by lap to Mark Blundell. And Prost now is going to go for that lead at this point. But Damon Hill already has increased the gap very slightly between himself and Alain Prost. This is Damon Hill's supreme day. He's on lap 40 out of 59. If he can hang on until lap 49, if my understanding is correct, they will hold station for the last 10 laps. We'll see.
The problem for Damon Hill is now whether he can stand the pressure that's going to come from Alain Prost right now. You remember the last time that the safety car came out was Brazil, where in fact Damon lost that race under those circumstances. But a more experienced driver such as Alain Prost, when the race has restarted, usually would be expected to have a slight advantage, a slight edge, because of his knowledge, because of his experience, because of his coolness. He doesn't seem to be able to take it right now, because if anything at all, Damon's opened that gap out just a wee bit. The slow corner there of Priory allowed Prost to get a little bit closer. Watch him here. He lets the car run into the corner very nicely. He has an ability to take the brakes off very easily before he gets to a corner. But I think Damon Hill's taken it. I think Damon Hill's now almost got the right pace for it. Whether he can keep it up for those last laps that we're about to see before so-called the arrangement comes into play is another matter. You're looking, of course, forward from the car of Alain Prost as they go through the Beckett's connection, as it is, because it's one corner immediately after another corner, getting on to Hangar Straight, and Damon has, Murray, an advantage that I think he must be reasonably pleased with, certainly more than he had the lap before.
And Alain Prost has driven in 19 times more Grand Prix than Damon Hill. This is Damon Hill's 11th. It's Alain Prost, 190 seconds second. But Prost has lost none of his enthusiasm for victory. He wants the 10 points as opposed to the 6 points that he would get if he won this race, because that would help him extend his championship lead over second place man Ayrton Senna. Damon Hill is third in the championship. We're on lap 41 now. It's Hill leading, Prost second. You can see the gap for yourselves. Schumacher is 5.7 seconds behind them. Ayrton Senna is 8 seconds behind Schumacher in fourth place. Martin Brundle is fifth. Patrese is sixth. Herbert is seventh. Blundell is eighth. Warwick is ninth. So the British drivers are all in the top 9 places, as they were when this race started. Leto is 10th. Alio is 11th. And in 12th place, Fittipaldi ahead of Rubens Barrichello. But this is the race, and Damon Hill is taking it at the present moment. And there is the proof, 122.5. That is exactly, in fact, that is a new lap record. Damon Hill here at Silverstone has broken Nigel Mansell's lap record from last year, and last year Nigel Mansell had got wider tyres, he'd got more downforce, he'd got more powerful fuel, and Damon Hill is going quicker than Nigel did last year. Damon looks as though, and I must be careful what I say now, he is in line for his first Grand Prix win at Silverstone. But there's still some time to go. This is lap 42. We're with Ayrton Senna now, and he's gesturing at the Lotus driver in front of him, and that is Sandro Zanardi, who is in 5th place. Senna is 4th, and there's an engine blowing. It's Damon Hill. What can I or anybody say? Damon Hill's Renault engine has expired on lap 42 of the British Grand Prix, and the Englishman is not going to win. Well, his body language says bitter disappointment, and you can understand that. Alain Prost goes into the lead, 7.3 seconds ahead of Michael Schumacher, as Frank Williams impassively looks at the bank of television monitors in front of him. And I can just imagine what's going through Damon Hill's mind now. What have I got to do to win a Grand Prix? Leading on the 42nd lap. And if there's one thing that the Renault V10 engine is famous for, it is reliability. And you can see, well, and still Damon finds time to wave to his fans. He must be nearly in tears, I should think. Well, there's the support, but Damon would have been far happier if he could have been seeing those Union Jacks, and Zanardi is out of the race as well. So that brings the retirements up to 8 of them, and Damon's got the sad task with Georgie, his wife, in the garage, her face nearly as sad as Damon Hill's. Well, Damon's time will come. He has been so close to it, never closer than today. Now let's have a look again. Where's Damon in front? Alain Prost pulls out to pass him as the Renault engine lets go, most unusually, as I've said, and a great plume of smoke marks the end of Damon Hill's 1993 British Grand Prix. And now, as he walks in on lap 44, Michael Schumacher is actually lapping faster than Alain Prost, who you look at now, and Schumacher is 6.6 seconds. There he is in the background. He's got to take Mark Blundell, who is in 7th place. Now here is Blundell in the Ligier Renault. He's about to be lapped by the 2nd place man, Michael Schumacher, and there you can see Schumacher is 6.6 seconds behind Alain Prost, and his last lap was 0.8 of a second faster than the Englishman, than the Frenchman's. Now, is Mark Blundell inadvertently holding up Michael Schumacher? The German needs all the help he can get at this stage of the race, because Alain Prost has got a clear track in front of him, which Michael Schumacher most assuredly has not. And he has to be very careful not to go offline onto the rubber crumb from the tyres of other cars, which are lining the sides of the circuit and in effect making rubber ball bearings, which it's all too easy to spin off on. And I think Blundell is going slower than Michael Schumacher would like him to. Well, the gap now is, let's have a look, it was 6.5 seconds. Prost is on his 45th lap now, and yes, it's Schumacher lost a full second on that lap. The gap is up to 7.5 seconds, with Alain Prost having lapped 9/10 quicker. But now Schumacher's in the clear. You can see how he's pulling away. Now this is the battle. All through the field it continues, and the battle now is between Senna, Brundle and Herbert for third position. And you'll be able to see in a moment just how close to each other they are, because there's Ayrton Senna, and we're with the McLaren now. He is on his 45th lap. He's a couple of seconds and less now in front of Brundle, who is fourth, Herbert, who is fifth, Patrese, who is in sixth position. Now, there is Senna. Behind him is Fittipaldi, who has been lapped. Behind him is Alesi, who has been lapped. There is Martin Brundle in the blue and white Ligier, who's just lapped Zanardi and Boutsen. And Herbert is behind Thierry Boutsen. And we're on lap 45. Now this is Senna's opportunity to pull away a bit, because there's lots of traffic, as Rubens Barrichello, who is in 13th place now, goes through in the Jordan Hart up towards, out of Club Corner, up towards Abbey, into Bridge. That is Ayrton Senna, and the Brazilian in the McLaren is in third position. Well, there's no way he's going to get second place unless Prost or Schumacher have problems. But this is what Senna does. He says, I will go as fast as I can. You can't do better than that. And if I keep up the pressure, one of the cars in front may have a problem. Senna going through to complete his 45th lap in this 59 lap race, with Prost still lapping marginally faster than Michael Schumacher. The gap now is 8 seconds between first and second, but there is Senna. Now, next is Brundle, and Brundle has got past the traffic. The Englishman, whose highest place thus far this year is third position at San Marino and a couple of fifth places down. That was Senna. Here are Fittipaldi and Alesi, who have been lapped. Behind them is Martin Brundle. Behind him is Rubens Barrichello. The yellow and dark-coloured car is Philippe Alliot, and going through behind Philippe Alliot is Zanardi, Sandro Zanardi, the Italian in the Lotus, lap 46. Prost 8 seconds ahead of Schumacher. You're watching Martin Brundle, 5th position, 4.3 seconds now behind Ayrton Senna. Martin comes from South Wootton near Kings Lynn. And I'm sure the flags are waving for him now. Ex-Benetton driver last year, ex-Tyrrell, ex-Jaguar. World champion in the sports car series in 1988. He won at Le Mans for Jaguar. And he's driven for Williams in one race at Spa in 1988 when Nigel Mansell had chicken pox and couldn't drive. Martin Brundle completes the lap. Now he wants to get past the Ferrari of Alesi. Now where is Johnny Herbert? Well, that is Philippe Alliot. There is Riccardo Patrese, and that is Johnny Herbert, who is in 6th position in the points behind the Italian. There is Patrese in the yellow and green Benetton, 5th position, and Patrese's got Alliot in front of him, who's not famous for driving the narrowest motor car in Grand Prix racing, which means to say he makes it difficult for people to pass, but not for Patrese on this occasion, or for Johnny Herbert. Well, Alliot dives into the slipstream of Riccardo Patrese's car to pick up some revs, and in the process holds up Johnny Herbert, as Martin Brundle on the left in the blue car is still stuck behind Alesi and Fittipaldi. Now, once again, Christian Fittipaldi is driving a fine race. He's in 10th position in the Minardi Ford. He's holding off Jean Alesi in the Ferrari. And Fittipaldi's car was not tested at all at Silverstone because it is an Italian-based team. And they have very little money, and they do no testing between races. They have to do all their testing at races. And Schumacher, while you're watching this, I've been watching the times between Schumacher and Prost on lap 48. They're down to 5.2 seconds. That's because Schumacher has just gone round 1.3 seconds faster than Alain Prost in the lead. Now, is the Frenchman just driving a canny race and cooling it? I would be surprised on lap 48 out of 59.
Well, he has a way of being able to pace himself probably better than most other drivers, and I think he'll be watching that pace very carefully. Some of that may have been while we were watching the progress of Schumacher. It may have been that Prost had some traffic to deal with. I don't think if it comes to push and shove, it'll be difficult for him to speed up where necessary. 5.2 seconds for me, however, would not be personally quite enough. I'd like to see a little bit more air between myself and the man that I was getting a little pressure from. Schumacher, as I say again, because of his youth and exuberance, tends to drive very, very hard, where Prost is that little bit more mature, down to 4.8 seconds now. That's the gap between Alain Prost and Schumacher. Schumacher still being very smooth here. For his age, he's extremely mature. And there you can see both cars. Prost was actually cocking his head over just as he came onto that straight to see if he could see Schumacher's car in his rear view mirrors. Schumacher coming through there. That's Stowe corner, double apex. There you see Alain Prost, slowest corner of the track, down to second gear. Schumacher, I believe, is a great star for the future. We're going to see a lot more of him because I don't think Alain Prost will race for so many more years. Whether Ayrton Senna races for a lot more years to come, who knows? But you have to look to see who's going to take over the mantle. The mantle at the moment looks as if it would be taken by this man.
Lap 49. 10 laps to go, 4.8 seconds at the end of the last lap between Alain Prost leading and Schumacher, who is going faster. Half a second faster on the previous lap. The young German charging. As I've said before, he's got an incredibly mature head on his young shoulders. He got a good training with Mercedes-Benz. Alain Prost has just lapped Tokyo Katayama in the new Tyrrell, and the gap is 4.6 seconds. And once again, Schumacher has gone faster. Only 0.2 of a second, admittedly, but with 10 laps to go, it's going to be very close there. We're looking back at Michael with the drinks tube sticking in the front of his helmet. Look at the G-forces affecting the position of his head as he goes round the left and right bends. With that 750 plus Ford V8 engine punching out the power behind him. He goes through and takes Katayama, who you have seen Prost pass already. Now, there's Prost, there's Schumacher. That does not look like 4.6 seconds to me. That looks like less than 4.6 seconds. On lap 50, 9 laps to go. Damon Hill has the consolation, although I don't think it will be much of a consolation to him, of having broken the lap record of Nigel Mansell before he sadly went out on that 42nd lap with a blown engine, and Michael Schumacher is going for it. 1:23.2 his last lap. 1:23.4 Prost last lap. Cross the right side of your screen, Schumacher the left, as they come out of the Luffield series of corners into Woodcote to complete their 50th lap with 9 to go, and Mark Blundell has spun it to a standstill but rejoins 7th position. Mark Blundell in the second of the Ligiers. And he did that at Priory Corner, which is the fast third gear left-hander before Brooklands, as you watch Michael Schumacher in the Benetton Ford. Prost. 4.18 seconds. 0.4 of a second faster. Michael Schumacher, they enter the hangar straight. They build up to 190 miles an hour on the approach to Stowe. But even if Schumacher catches Prost and sits underneath his rear wing, the Frenchman will know that if he holds the racing line doggedly, and he's got a lot of experience at doing that, it's going to be well nigh impossible for Schumacher to get past him. Or is it? Because if there's one man who takes a chance when he's charging, it's this man. So Michael Schumacher up into Abbey. And this is Mark Blundell's spin. This is a replay. He loses it at Abbey. Very quick corner indeed. But that's how quick, Bridge, I'm sorry. That's how quickly they scrub the speed off with those broad tyres. Just goes into the gravel a bit, as on the right you see Prost, on the left you see Schumacher. The gap on the previous lap, 50, was 4.18 seconds. Prost completes the lap now. Schumacher completes the lap now, and the gap, which was 4.18, has gone up to 4.48. And Prost has got the message. I know what you're up to, he says. I'm going to go quicker, 0.3 of a second quicker. That'll do nicely. That'll maintain the gap. You can see it. And it's Prost leading on lap 52 out of 59. Schumacher is second. Senna is 35 seconds behind them in third position. Brundle is well back on Senna now, fourth place. Patrese is fifth. And you'll notice that Brundle is now up ahead of Riccardo Patrese, so he's up into fourth place. Johnny Herbert is in sixth place. Warwick is seventh. Blundell is eighth, notwithstanding that spin. Ninth is Leto. 10th is Fittipaldi. 11th is Barrichello. And in eighth position, it is Jean Alesi's Ferrari. So 8 laps to go. Fascinating technical battle this, because you have the V10 Renault engine, the V8 Ford engine. There's a lot of discussion about which is the better. This is Riccardo Patrese. We're with Patrese now, and ahead of him is Brundell's Ligier in fourth position. Behind him, immediately behind him, is Johnny Herbert. And you remember we said earlier on, it looked as though the Lotus could come good at this race. Well, that is exactly what it is doing. Johnny Herbert's highest finish this year, 2 fourth places in Brazil and at Donington, and he's on target to finish in the points, and that would be a real lift for the Lotus team at Hethel in Norfolk. That's Patrese. Somebody locked up there, or locked a tyre. Brundle, Patrese right behind him. Now here they come, Fittipaldi, Boutsen, Alesi, they've been lapped. Brundle is coming up to lap them again, with Patrese in his wheel tracks and Johnny Herbert right behind him. So you're looking now at the battle for 5th, 6th and 7th places, behind the lapped Fittipaldi in the white Minardi wearing the yellow helmet. Fittipaldi wearing the yellow helmet. Alesi, Barrichello, and this is Patrese's chance, and he's taking it. He's going to try and nip through and take Martin Brundle, who is held up by the cars ahead of him. But Brundle is a canny driver, as Jackie just said. He closes the door, but they're still held up by the battle. Fittipaldi, Alesi and Barrichello for respectively 10th, 11th and 12th places. The leaders are now on lap 53 out of 59, and we're with Riccardo Patrese, the very, very experienced 249th Grand Prix this is for Riccardo. There was talk that he might be losing his place in the Benetton team, but he's fought back, and look at Johnny Herbert right behind him. And Herbert is driving a Lotus which has got one of the customer Ford engines, and it's got a lot less power than the Benetton, no doubt about that. So that's a testimony to the skill and the determination of Johnny Herbert. And Brundle goes now, Herbert's attacking. And Herbert's taking Patrese, is he? Riccardo refuses to give way as they go round the left-hander at Abbey. Herbert attacks again as they come up to the 160-mile-an-hour bridge corner. Brundle is still in that fourth position, 4th, 5th and 6th. You look at them now, but the 3 ahead of them are pulling away. The battle between Fittipaldi, Alesi and Barrichello for 10th, 11th and 12th places is easing away from this battle for 4th position. Brundle has got it, and Herbert goes for it again as they come up to Woodcote. Patrese is up alongside Brundle almost, and Brundle has got Johnny Herbert right behind him. Wow, into Copse. This is 5th gear, 160 miles an hour, lap 54. We haven't forgotten the leaders, don't worry. Prost is still ahead of Schumacher by 5.5 seconds. Senna is still third, 38 seconds behind Schumacher, and still Brundle versus Patrese versus Herbert, Ligier versus Benetton versus Lotus, Renault engine versus 2 Fords and through, and Brundle's in trouble. Brundle's in trouble. Something's happened. The Ligier is stopping. Johnny Herbert moves up into 5th position. Riccardo Patrese moves up into 4th place. And now he's pulled clear and he's closing up. But this is Johnny Herbert's chance, because Riccardo Patrese is closing up on the Barrichello-Alesi battle in front of him. And this, if Johnny Herbert plays his cards right, he could get through and take what is now 4th position from Riccardo Patrese. There's Riccardo. Remember, his teammate, Michael Schumacher, poor old Martin Brundle. That's tough luck for Martin Brundle. He's driven another fine race. That's his 5th retirement of 1993. As Barrichello has a go at Alesi. And Alesi in the Scarlet Ferrari is in 11th position. Andrea De Cesaris doing a bit of rallycross driving in the new Tyrrell. And Patrese in 4th position. Herbert in 5th place. The leaders are now on lap 55, are closing up on Rubens Barrichello, the young Brazilian, who is in 12th position, chasing Alesi and Fittipaldi. And Alain Prost has just gone through on his 56th lap, 8.6 seconds ahead of Schumacher. Prost has really got cracking as Rubens Barrichello goes for Alesi, and the position of the Ferrari just fails to get it. And Rubens Barrichello is 21 years old. He's the youngest driver in the race, and he's attacking the most forceful, determined driver of them all, many people think, Jean Alesi. As Riccardo Patrese doggedly hangs on to his 4th place ahead of Johnny Herbert. Johnny Herbert looks as though he's on target for 2 World Championship points to add to the 6 that he already has. That would help him in the World Championship. He's in 7th place. Patrese coming through to complete another lap as they go into the new complex. Ferrari, Brooklands, now the 2 right-handers at Luffield, 3rd gear. 2nd gear for the second one for some of them, and then they're up to 3rd, 4th, 5th and 6th. And Alain Prost is on his 56th lap, 8.5 seconds ahead of Schumacher, as Patrese closes right up in 4th position. On 11th place, Rubens Barrichello. And this is what, Martin Brundle. We've seen the sad side of one Englishman walking in, Damon Hill. And now pensive Martin Brundle, a lot of experience in his Grand Prix career, also walks in from his 108th Grand Prix. Now, there is Alesi, followed by Barrichello. A lap behind, if you follow me, Patrese and Herbert. And Riccardo Patrese is drawing on all his experience of this sort of situation now to keep ahead of Johnny Herbert, the Englishman in the Lotus, who's in 5th place. Derek Warwick has been lapped, but he's in 6th position. And if Derek Warwick stays where he is now, it will be the first point that the footwork team have got this season. They did the whole of the first half of the season without any points at all. And if Derek Warwick finishes there, it will not only be his return to the points in Grand Prix racing, and very well deserved too, but it will be his and the team's first point. Well, Jackie, can you see anything stopping Alain Prost now? He's on his 57th lap in 59, and he is nearly 10 seconds ahead of Michael Schumacher.
I think it's just the master at work. I think he's paced himself perfectly. Of course, I think the great fortune of the trouble that Damon Hill ran into has given to Alain Prost this race in a very easy manner. I wouldn't have expected him, in fact, to pass Damon. I think Damon had the race, so I really take my hat off to the young man. I'm sad for him because I would like to have seen a name of Hill on this trophy for the British Grand Prix. His papa never did win the British Grand Prix, and it would have been nice for Betty, I know, who must be here today, as well as Georgie, to see Damon Hill win this, which he could easily have done. And there you see him right now speaking to Frank Williams. Clearly they know what's going on there, because the telemetry, which feeds about 1,000 impulses in every time the car passes the pits, 2.5 seconds worth of unloading. They must have known what happened to that engine right away, and maybe even knew before it happened. But there, in fact, is Alain Prost leading the race, as down in the pits is Damon Hill with Jonathan Palmer.
Damon, that was simply appalling misfortune. Can you tell us what happened?
Well, I pushed very hard after the safety car pulled off because clearly there was nothing in it between myself and Alan for the last 20 laps. So it'd be important to push as hard as possible to make a break. And just coming out of club corner, it made a noise and I lost all power. And I think it was a mechanical failure in the engine.
No warning at all prior to that? The car was running well?
Yep, fine, yep.
And do you think, I mean, you were looking in great shape, you seem to be holding Alain, you made a good charge, as you said, after that stop. Were you confident you could have held him off to win your first Grand Prix?
Well, I was giving it a damn good go, and I could see him slowly dropping back. I mean, he was right on my tail at one time, and then as I looked in my mirrors, he was maybe 2 seconds back. And I knew that I'd have to put in a good 5 or 6 really hard laps to make a break on him, and I never got...
Well, there's no question...
I never got the chance to finish it off.
Well, there's no question. Everyone was really willing you for that win, Damon. Thank you very much, and our real commiserations on that.
Okay, thanks for everyone's support over the weekend.
And Alain Prost is into the Vale and up to club corner for the 59th time in this 59-lap British Grand Prix at Silverstone. And he is about to win a record 50th Grand Prix, the first Grand Prix driver in the history of the sport to achieve an incredible half-century of victories, and that will be his 6th win this year. It will extend his lead in the World Championship over Ayrton Senna. It will raise his World Championship points level to an incredible 766.5. But as far as they're concerned, he's concerned, they're just numbers, and Alain Prost wins the British Grand Prix at Silverstone, sees the checkered flag, and will be as delighted as he always is to win a race. He's driven a superb race. He pressured Damon Hill, and sadly, you've heard the story from Damon of what happened to him. He was giving it everything that he had got, but it just wasn't enough. Michael Schumacher has finished second again, and I say again because that is the 3rd time. And here is Senna rolling to a standstill now. Ayrton Senna now, is he home for the full? He hasn't crossed the line. This means that Riccardo Patrese could be 3rd, and it means that Johnny Herbert could be in 4th position. Ayrton Senna always seems to have bad luck at the British Grand Prix. He's only won it once. Prost there is on his victory lap. But the Brazilian, has he run out of petrol? I'm waiting now to see who comes and takes that checkered flag next. There is Blundell finishing. That was JJ Leto in the Sauber finishing. We're still waiting for whoever it is who's going to be 3rd to come home. And it looks as though it's going to be Riccardo Patrese. The Italian is going to have a rostrum position at the British Grand Prix. And Benetton's are going to finish 2nd and 3rd. Senna out of the British Grand Prix, and Johnny Herbert is going to finish in 4th position, and that is official. Riccardo Patrese finishes 3rd. Johnny Herbert for Lotus is in the points. There is a far from happy Ayrton Senna, and unless I'm very much mistaken, this is the 3rd year in succession that Ayrton Senna has retired. I remember him riding back on the side pod of Nigel Mansell's car the year before last. Last year he nearly had the opportunity of doing the same thing but declined it, and for the 3rd year running Senna is out. That means no points for him, and it won't alter his World Championship position because he was a long way ahead of the 2nd place man the 3rd place man in the championship, Damon Hill, and the 4th place man Michael Schumacher. But Michael Schumacher will move up to 3rd in the championship ahead of Damon Hill. But this is the man. Alain Prost has won the British Grand Prix, not for the 1st time, or the 2nd, or the 3rd, or the 4th, but for the 5th time. Because Prost won the British Grand Prix as long ago as 1983 and followed it up with victories in 85, 89 and 90, and now in 1993. Another famous victory for the Frenchman and for the Williams-Renault team. And once again, poor Damon Hill has had to retire. That's his 4th retirement after having to go out of the race in South Africa and San Marino and Spain. But Williams have done it with 50% of the team in the place that matters. 1st position. Prost rolls into the Parc Fermé now, which is where the cars have to go to be examined by race officials to make sure they're legal.
There's Michael Schumacher. He's home safely in second position, although he's being pushed. I suspect he's just allowed the engine to die. He finished 7.6 seconds behind Alain Prost, and a long way ahead of his teammate. But Benetton, for the first time this year, have got 2 cars in the first 3 places. Senna, having contemplated things, wearily gets out of the car, waves to the crowd, which he loves. He loves driving in Britain, not when he retires. But Prost, off comes the helmet. Now we'll see the famous French face and the curly hair. And Johnny Herbert has finished in 4th place. Lotus are back, and that is great news. Ayrton Senna finishes in 5th position, because most of the other people had been lapped, and Senna, although he's a lap down, still takes 5th position. Derek Warwick finishes in 6th, and Mark Blundell in 7th place. So Johnny Herbert for Britain 4th, Derek Warwick for Britain 6th, Mark Blundell for Britain and France, because he drives for the Ligier team, 7th. The British drivers Hill and Brundle sadly out of it. Riccardo Patrese on the right. Oh, he'll be... Well, look at that. And Michael Schumacher smiling. He's, as ever, tremendously cheerful young man. And, well, what does the expert think? Jackie Stewart, 50 wins for Alain Prost, but the new boy's coming up fast.
Well, I think it's great for Alan. 50 wins. I really congratulate him. As I said, I was there on his 28th win when he beat my record. I said at that time, you know, Alan, I'm sure you'll go on to win 40. Well, he's certainly proving me wrong. He's adding to them all the time. Nevertheless, 50 is an incredible record for anyone to meet. The man who's walking beside him right now may be the man who will have to take that challenge on, but it'll take him a lot of years to do that. It certainly won't be Riccardo Patrese, because he's had enough victories behind him now, almost to serve what perhaps he deserves, but he's had a lot of races. But Schumacher is a rising star. Ayrton Senna today, again unlucky at Silverstone, but of course started with great verve, but I don't think he was ever going to do the job today. Damon Hill certainly could have done the job as far as I was concerned, and it's very sad that he wasn't given that opportunity to win this home Grand Prix. But to the little professor, he really is the master at going faster, as George Harrison once said. He really is the intelligent driver. He drives only as fast as he needs to drive. He somehow conserves his engineering ability within that car and its preparation.
The stirring strains of the Marseillaise ring out for Alain Prost, the French winner of the British Grand Prix, and God Save the Queen for the Williams British team for the top constructor, as Prince Michael gives the trophy to a very happy Alain Prost. Well, that 6th win has increased his points in the 1993 season to 67, one race into the second half of the championship. Michael Schumacher receives his trophy from Kenneth Clark. You see, he's well pleased. So a Frenchman wins, a German is second, and Italian Riccardo Patrese takes the trophy for 3rd place. So it's a pretty international British Grand Prix. France, Germany and Italy. An Englishman, Damon Hill, breaks Nigel Mansell's lap record, having led the race for a long, long time. Sadly, today was not his day. It most certainly was Alain Prost's. And now the inevitable champagne spraying.
with which, of course, Alain Prost has got a great deal of experience. And I remember Niki Lauda saying once, I hate all this because it takes about 3 days to wash the smell of the stuff out of my overalls afterwards. And those overalls cost well over £1,000 a pair. Well, Prost can afford it. He's a very wealthy man. And the little Frenchman, and you see now why I use that word a lot, as Riccardo Patrese and Michael Schumacher tower over him, with confirmation of the fact that the 1993 British Grand Prix at Silverstone has been won by Alain Prost for Williams-Renault, with the Benetton Fords of Michael Schumacher and Riccardo Patrese second and third, ahead of Johnny Herbert, Ayrton Senna and Derek Warwick. And down in the pit lane, Jonathan Palmer can tell us what happened to Ayrton Senna.
Well, I've just been looking at the data logger with the McLaren engineers, and Senna's problem was lack of fuel pressure towards the end of the race, which is pretty likely to be, almost certainly, in fact, he ran out of fuel. But what's interesting is that apparently Senna opted to run what Ron Dennis felt was a rather too low fuel load, obviously in the interest of trying to find out, or trying to get the last few tenths of lap time out of the car, and it looks like on this occasion he made the wrong decision, clearly running out. But apparently it was Senna's decision to run that amount of fuel. Now also we've got news from Patrick Head that there is no indication on their telemetry whatsoever that there was any problem with the engine prior to it going, so it looks like a mechanical fault for that Renault V10.
I thought Patrick Head was going to have said that there was no indication that there was any problem with the Renault engine, in which case I was going to assure him that there had been a major problem, but obviously that is not the case. Victory for Alain Prost at Silverstone in the Williams. A great day for Benetton, second and third. First time they've done that for a long time. Johnny Herbert, a great day for Lotus and for Johnny himself. Fourth position. Not a great day for Ayrton Senna, lapped in fifth position, but Derek Warwick scores the first point that Footwork have had for a very long time. Mark Blundell just out of the points in the Ligier. JJ Leto in the Sauber finishing much higher than he might have expected to because he started well down. At least Jean Alesi finished, which is more than his Ferrari teammate Gerhard Berger did. And Katayama and Brundle, of course, were well down by virtue of the fact that they had been lapped many times. 14 drivers were officially classified as having finished out of the 25 that started. Damon Hill's fastest lap time was 1 minute 22.515. Alain Prost now a comfortable 20 points ahead of Ayrton Senna in the championship. Michael Schumacher moves ahead of Damon Hill after Damon's retirement. Schumacher 2 points ahead now. And Riccardo Patrese, who was down in 8th position before this race began, is now up in 5th. And as you see, Johnny Herbert has got 6 points now with the bottom Ferrari, 9 points, I'm sorry, Johnny Herbert. And Derek Warwick down at the bottom of the table, but nevertheless he's on the table and has got a point for Footwork. That will help them in terms of morale, and it will help them financially no end too. So the crowd at Silverstone have seen an exciting and certainly a very eventful British Grand Prix, and now the Williams team 45 points ahead of McLaren Ford. And it looks like nothing's going to stop them winning the Constructors' Championship this year. But Benetton inching up on McLaren, just 11 points in it. Ligier still on their target, but they've got to score some points to make sure they get 30 by the end of the season, which is what they are aiming to do. And the Lotus team with 10 has moved up a place in the championship. And down in the interview room, waiting to talk to Martin Whitaker, on the left, Riccardo Patrese, on the right, Michael Schumacher, and in the middle, the man, Alain Prost.
Gentlemen, congratulations on a fabulous British Grand Prix, which had excitement written all over it right down to the last lap. Turning to you, Alain, today you've set another landmark in an illustrious Grand Prix career with your 50th victory, but this was a race where your teammate Damon Hill looked to be heading for a dream first win in the front of his home crowd. Was there anything you could have done about it?
I don't know what I was able to do. In fact, I was able to catch him. Was quite far at the beginning because I missed the start again. Was 8 seconds behind and was able to catch him and to be just behind him. But to overtake a car here, it's quite difficult. He was driving quite well, I think it would have been very, very difficult to overtake him. I just wanted to go until the end like this behind him and just wait for the right opportunity, but I don't think it looked that I would have had one, you know, and would have been difficult.
Presumably the team would have radioed through Damon's problem. Did this give you further cause for concern?
I saw his problem. And I was wondering if he was pulling more revs or something, and I didn't know what to do, but I slowed down quite a lot. But when I slowed down, I mean, Michael was pushing behind me quite hard, and then it was more and more difficult. I think it because I slowed down, maybe the tires pressure were a little bit low and was more difficult to go fast and fast at the end, but I was able to keep the pace anyway.
Well, Michael, turning to you, consistency seems to be the name of your game. Another podium finish here in Britain. It's looking good, and you're closing in on Senna.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, we should have been even in front of Senna, but the beginning of the season didn't run so well as it does now. Unfortunately, Alan could make up the pace again at the end. I thought there is maybe a little problem with his car as well after Damon blew up, and I was pushing really hard. I mean, I couldn't do anything more, but was not able to come closer than 4 seconds, and then he started to push a bit harder. But I believe the performance from the car is really great, and I'm quite happy. We have now both cars in the first three, and I think there's a good result.
Well, turning to your teammate, Riccardo Patrese, you grabbed third place in the dying moments here to claim your first podium finish this year. Tremendous result.
Yes, I'm very pleased. Really, this is the first race that I enjoy very much this year. The car went very well, and it was really very busy the last part of the race after the safety car, because lap cars with me, Brundle, Herbert, they were really quite wild, I should say. So it was quite interesting. I'm very, very happy, and also because the team had a little bit of passion. The first part of the season didn't come really very right for me, but I hope now that is a new start for the second half.
Once more back to you, Alain. A word perhaps for the thousands of British supporters here who turned up to see Damon win.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sorry because during the whole weekend he was driving very well. He has done a very good job, and I really think he deserved to win this race, especially here at home. And that doesn't happen. It's not, you know, that's my 50th victory, and I would have liked to win in a different ambience. You know, for sure the people here are very disappointed, and I'm very sorry for them, very sorry for them, but nothing I can do about that. You know, I will be happy a bit later in the day.
Turning our thoughts just briefly ahead to Germany in 2 weeks' time, Damon showed you a clean pair of heels here. What are the prospects next time round?
I think this one was a very strange race for us because of Damon's situation, and I think Germany would be a little bit different in terms of pressure. Because I won again here, I would be a little bit more relaxed for the championship. Also, Hockenheim, we should go very well because our car is fast. We have a very powerful engine, and Hockenheim should be good.
And I'm sure the man next to you is going to be fired up on home soil. Michael, what are the chances?
I mean, it depends what he is doing. I think now he has 50 victories. He's leading the championship far enough. Maybe I think. He let me through, and I can win the race. Maybe we have a talk later about this. But I think that as we saw here and over the last races, our car is performing very well behind the Williams, in front of the McLaren, and I think that is our position we are in. If they run into a bit of trouble, we may have the chance to pick up another position. But we see. I think behind the Williams, that is already a big step from last year.
Well, Alain Prost, Michael Schumacher, Riccardo Patrese, congratulations on a great British Grand Prix.
Thank you.
Thank you.